Hi, I'm Cynthia Shellhart. You can call me Cindy, and it's time for some double talk. Double-strung harp, that is. Welcome back to our FAQ series on the double-strung harp. Last time, in part 1 of episode 4, we took a first look at the double-strung harp's family tree from late Renaissance chromatic harps to the Welsh triple harp in the 18th century. If you missed that episode, make sure you subscribe so that you can find out about future episodes. This time in part 2, we'll keep exploring the roots of the modern double-strung harp. This will include the 19th century Welsh triple harp's revival and the 20th century Big Bang that gave birth to the modern double-strung harp. Let's get started on part 2. Unfortunately, by the 19th century, the Welsh triple harp was actually, despite its earlier popularity, it was in danger of extinction. The pedal harp was gaining favor, and there were a shortage of harp builders building the old, by that time, old triple harp. Also, despite our modern conception of harps being angelic and good and pure instruments, the Methodist religious revival in Wales gave harps and harpists kind of a bad rep. These harps were lighter and easier to travel with. They didn't have a heavy metal mechanism, so the harps were frequently taken to fairs and taverns and played along with fiddles, and people used to dance to their music, and dancing was extremely anathema to the Methodists. And these harps got a bad reputation. Their harpists felt pressure after religious conversion and pressure from the church, and sometimes even to the extent that they abandoned their harps. Harps were buried in peat bogs, they were burnt, or even just left to rot. For example, underneath a harpist's bed, never to be played again. Fortunately, there were two main sources of keeping the tradition going in the 19th century, the tradition of the Welsh triple harp. A very important tradition is from the Welsh gypsy or Roma families of the Woods and the Roberts families, two different families. These families played triple harp and brought the triple harp from the north of Wales to the south. So now the entire country had exposure to the Welsh triple harp. And a noblewoman named Augusta Waddington Hall, whose title was Lady Llanover, established Llanover House as a center for Welsh language and culture, including music. She was amazing. She was the ultimate Welshophile. She employed triple harpists and harp builders. She donated triple harps as competition prizes and collected folk music. She was a major contributor to the survival and later the revival of the Welsh triple harp and its music. But unfortunately, despite the best efforts of Lady Llanover and her daughter, by the early 20th century, here we go again, the triple harp and traditional music in Wales had nearly been abandoned once again for the pedal harp and classical music. Fortunately, once again, we have a couple of exceptions that kept everything going and kept things going to the modern day. One great exception was a remarkable harpist and woman named Nancy Richards Jones. She learned the triple harp and traditional music from harpist and harp builder Thomas Lloyd, and she grew up listening and dancing to the music of the Wood Gypsy Roma family in Wales. As she grew in popularity, she toured Britain and America, playing both the triple harp and pedal harp on her left shoulder. She toured these countries in the early 20th century, and she held the title of Royal Harpist to the Prince of Wales from 1911 all the way until her death in 1971. Nancy inspired many next-generation triple harp players, including David and Gwenda Roberts of the Welsh group Arlog, who were later inspirations to Robin Hugh Bowen, who we'll talk about in a moment, and also Chiel Redrych, who was a student of Nancy's. And as I mentioned, Robin Hugh Bowen not only was inspired by students of Nancy Richards, but also himself studied with a link to the Welsh Gypsy Roma tradition. He studied with Eldra Jarman, who was the great-granddaughter of John Roberts. So we have connections with Nancy, with the Woods family, and Robin Hugh Bowen through Eldra Jarman with John Roberts. And Robin Hugh Bowen is probably the most well-known traditional player of the Welsh triple harp today. And other current triple harp performers include Eleanor Bennett, Ellery Darkins, and Gareth Swindale Perry of Wales, and American Cheryl Ann Fulton. But just as important, you can't have triple harp players if you don't have triple harps to play. And one harp builder in particular was extremely important in this revival. He was a gentleman named John Weston Thomas. He was a master harp maker who single-handedly resurrected harp making in Wales in the mid-1960s, including the Welsh triple harp. He taught himself to build harps from museum instruments and looking at old illustrations because at the time he was the only harp builder left in Wales and one of only 3 in all of Britain. His innovative perpendicular design made triple harps more stable and long-lasting for the next generation. So he made harps stronger and easier to keep intact for people to play for a long time. He was awarded the BEM, the British Empire Medal for harp making, by Queen Elizabeth in the New Year Honors in 1983. And here we finally meet our instrument, the modern double-strung harp. In 1989, a collaboration between Welsh and Australian harpist and singer Gwenda Davis and the harp builder John Weston Thomas started them discussing in late 1988 or early 1989 about a Welsh traditional double-strung harp with levers on both sides. Because Davis was a singer, she wanted a harp where she could easily change keys with preset levers instead of having to retune the strings like the older triple harps and older historical harps required. Also, as a Welsh harpist, she wanted the new harp to keep the same 2 unison rows of the Welsh triple harp. So the resulting harp in 1989 was called the Gwenda by John Weston Thomas. He had fulfilled both her wishes for the 2 unison diatonic rows and full levers on both sides. Davis played it in Wales before bringing it home to San Francisco, California in the early 1990s, and now she lives and teaches and performs in her native Australia. Thomas unfortunately made only one other Gwenda double harp before his death in December 1992. But he did go on to inspire and train a number of apprentices to keep the triple harp tradition going. In a letter I received from Gwenda Davis in 2005, she says, "The personal enjoyment I gained from playing the Gwenda harp is mainly related to the increased complexity of sound textures, especially when improvising or accompanying my singing. It works particularly well on the Welsh triple harp techniques of doubling." Not long after Thomas's build of the Gwenda double harp, in 1992, the first North American double-strung harps were built by 2 harpist and luthier teams in North America. Harpist Lori Riley and luthier Steve Triplett of Triplett Harps in California, and harpist Elizabeth or Liz Chifani and luthier Gary Stone of Here Incorporated, now known as Stony End Harps, in Minnesota. Fun fact here, I actually introduced Lori Riley to Liz Cifani. Liz was my teacher at that time. I introduced them at the 1990 conference of the International Society of Folk Harpers at the conference in Minneapolis, Minnesota at Augsburg College. And coincidentally, Riley and Cifani, you know it, shared an interest in Welsh harp music. It's all starting to come together. After the conference, a phone conversation between the two of them inspired both players to design instruments that could play Welsh triple harp repertoire without retuning or using a third chromatic row of strings. Lori Riley turned to triplet harps, and Liz Cifani contacted Here Incorporated, and by the summer of 1992, these collaborations had produced the first modern double-strung harps built in North America. In 1993, both these harpists released the first recordings to include double-strung harp alongside their other harps. Cifani's solo CD, Bella Stella, and Riley's duo CD with Michael McBean, Double Image. While Riley and triplet and Cifani and Stone were not the first to invent the modern double-strung harp, they were certainly the first to launch this new instrument in North America. And today, Stony End Harps, Gary Stone's company, is the world's oldest continuous builder of double-strung harps. Finally, I'd like to share my own connection with this story in the double-strung harp family tree. I'd like to share my connection with you. My double-strung harp adventure began in graduate school at the Pennsylvania State University. This is where I studied harp and directed the early music ensemble, and among other things, I played Baroque Continuo on an arpadoppia built by Tim Hobro. Later, after grad school, I returned to my native Midwest, and I worked for a time for harp builders Lyon and Healy in Chicago, and that's when I met and studied lever harp with Liz Cifani. In summer of 1992, when she got that first double-strung harp from Gary Stone, hers was made of cherry wood, and this was Gary Stone's very first double, and this is the model now known as the Lorraine. When I saw that harp, I immediately placed an order for my own double-strung harp. Gary built the next harp, his second double-strung harp for me. This one was made of walnut wood, and I received it in September 1992 at the Fox River Valley Folk Festival in Geneva, Illinois. And later that year, this harp inspired me to write my composition Walnut Welcome, which is one of the first compositions written for solo double-strung harp. While I didn't invent or design one of the first double-strung harps, I'm proud to be a pioneer double-strung harp performer, teacher, and composer. In addition to that first harp by Gary Stone, I've played double-strung harps by Dusty Strings, Rees Harps, Argent Fox Music, and other builders. I've released 2 of the first all double-strung harp solo CDs, written a best-selling double-strung harp method book, and launched a new series of double-strung harp arrangements. And at the time of filming this video, I'm getting ready to celebrate my 30th anniversary with the double-strung harp in 2022, and I'll be sharing more with you soon about that celebration. So I hope you've enjoyed climbing the double-strung harp family tree and learning more about the history and the evolution of the modern double-strung harp, about its historical multi-row harp ancestors, its Welsh triple harp cousins, and the big bang of the double-strung harp in Britain and North America in the 20th century. If you like what you heard today, please make sure you're subscribed so you can be notified of future episodes. And if you want to be the first for more double-strung double talk, please sign up at my website, cindyshellhart.com, and sign up for my mailing list. Next time on episode 5, we're going to visit Inspiration Station. We're going to find out which music can you play on double-strung harp. See you next time.